Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. The podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Sarah Bauling. Now, Sarah is a professional speaker trainer. And I'm saying that very slow for you because this is something that I think every podiatrist needs. They need to become better at speaking, which is why I've got Sarah on here. Now, as you'll hear when Sarah comes on, she's immigrated to Australia in 2019 from South Africa. And also want to point out that her brother has been on the podcast back in episode 154 and 157, Sam Harrop, and it was titled Become an Employer of Choice. So Sarah, how are you doing today?
I am absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
This is great. And you are so much better looking than your brother.
Oh, thank you. Let him know that.
Yeah, I shall. But he actually said to me, he goes, "You got to get Sarah on your podcast." With what she does with speaker training, it is so cool. Plus, I was at one of Sam's Mad Days.
Ah, yes.
Which are absolutely fantastic. And you were speaking at one of his Mad Days. So I did meet you there, and I remember you talking, and I went, God damn, this is good stuff.
Thank you.
So let's get down to basics. What is it that you do as a professional speaker trainer?
Okay, that is a great question. So, Tyson, what I've done over the years, and I'm going to kind of digress a little, is I started speaking professionally in 2010 in South Africa, and there's a bit of a story about how that all started. And I've been on the most phenomenal journey for the last 14 years, where I've had the honor and the privilege of speaking on some of the largest stages alongside some of the greatest speakers, predominantly on the African continent. We moved to Australia in 2019. And of course, again, there's another whole story of how the business transformed in that time, because it was obviously quite a rough period in the world. And that's what sort of led me to where I am now. We look at the things that I love doing is I love coaching and I love training, very specifically adults. And I love the power of speaking and what speaking can do. So in this, I've worked with three key areas of people, or three focus areas. The one is elite speakers. And for me, that's a very privileged position. It's where speakers who are out there making money on the stage have heard me. They see that I've got a system and a framework, and they're like, I want a piece of that.
Oh, so they're already good speakers,
yes,
and they go, I want to get better.
Yes. So, and that's a very, very privileged space, because a lot of them are earning a ton of money already.
Yeah.
Then you've got the emerging speakers or the dreamers who go, I'd love to be a professional speaker.
Okay.
And of course, they reach out and we go, right, what does that journey look like? Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how can I be on that journey with you? And then the third is actually the space that I'm probably the most passionate about. And that is working with business owners. So it's not necessarily a business owner who wants to get on a stage and earn a ton of money, but a business owner who wants to be able to use the platform to basically grow their business. So that could be speaking at conferences, it could be speaking at events, it could be association events.
Yeah.
We're looking for a great speaker on X, whatever X is. And it gives them the chance to get up on that stage, deliver an amazing presentation, which often educates their audience if it's an industry event, but gives them the opportunity to be seen as the go-to authority. And as a result of that, you get connections, you get collaborations, and you get clients, which leads to cash.
Well, it does. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here, because like I know myself, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, that I managed to go through primary school, high school, and university without ever getting up and doing an oral presentation.
How did you do that?
I just didn't turn up for them.
No.
It was really simple. Just don't turn up. And sometimes there might have been a particular class or a lesson that said, this is worth 20%. This is worth 40%. They're going to put me down for a 0. I said, I'll blitz the exam and I'll get through. That's all they need to do. And sometimes they would say to me, oh, you must do it. And I go, show me the rules where it says I must. Just as a past subject. So I was able to just avoid it. I was the only sports captain that never got up and did a speech. I sent the vice captain up there. I was president of my rugby union club here in Cairns, and I just avoided ever doing any speeches. It was incredible. I was absolutely terrified. And then I just started doing it.
And it's an interesting thing, Tyson, is so many people are almost self-conscious. They just go like, I completely lack confidence. I'm going to totally mess this up. It's just going to be awful. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And a couple of realities. The first reality is if you're up there speaking, there's a whole bunch of people going, I'm so glad it's not me. But the second thing is the only person who knows if you've actually messed it up is actually just you.
Yeah, but somebody told me once the crowd never sits there and says, geez, I hope they stuff it up.
Never.
They're all on your side. Everybody is on your side.
100%. And the great thing is this, is if you are adding value to that audience, people are more taken with that information than worrying about he missed a line or he stuttered over a word or even as a professional speaker, there are times on stage where I don't get it right. Everyone thinks it's perfect. In my own head, I'm like, yeah, missed that one or missed that line. But the bottom line is your audience actually doesn't know. They're there to learn.
It's true. And how I ended up, I wouldn't say I ever got over it, was a doctor approached me and said, we need someone to present this sports medicine talk. Now, I knew the topic. I said, yeah, I can do that easily. And I said yes, and I don't know why. I went, why did you say yes? You do not do public speaking. So anyway, I rock up, 20, 30 people in the room. I managed to turn a 45-minute talk, I reckon, to about 4.5 minutes of me umming and ahhing, burping, and probably passing wind. I just butchered it. I walked out, sat down, just trying to regain myself. And the doctor came out, put his hand on my shoulder. And I'm thinking he's going to say to me, you didn't do as bad as you think. But he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, that was the worst presentation I have ever seen in my life. If you're ever asked again, please say no. He said, he goes, please don't put anybody through that ever again. He said, that was awful. And he walked away. And I went, But what I learned from that was I saw somewhere once and it said, nobody has ever died on stage public speaking. Nobody's actually ever died up there. And I'm thinking, if that's as bad as it can get, and I still walked out breathing, it can only get better.
100%.
And it could, like I said, it couldn't have been any worse. And I just went from horrendous to terrible, from terrible to not so bad, awful, and just slowly worked my way up until I'm still not great at doing it, but I now get enjoyment out of it.
That's exactly it. And I think, I love the fact that so there was a couple of things in there that I took out. And the first is one of the things I teach my own students is always say yes. In fact, when I run my 3-day masterclass, I start off with a story which is about yeses, and the very closing line is always say yes. And it's in those yes moments where many things happen. As humans, we get to grow in that space. That's the one thing. We get better at what we do, at our craft of speaking. But here's the really, really important part. And this is the bit that really counts, is every professional is generally very good at what they do. So they are highly confident and competent at what they do. Now, when you get on stage and you share that, that's where you're really making a difference. You're impacting, you're inspiring, and you're influencing people from the stage. And in many ways, you're changing lives through that. So when we get to say yes, it's not just about us. It's about the audiences that we have the privilege of sharing with.
And on that point too, I look at all the opportunities through my whole life that I missed because I said no.
Yeah.
Just dozens and dozens of opportunities that were put right in front of me. And I've been at business events and they'll say, our next speaker is just running a little bit late. Does someone want to come up on stage and just talk about the business for the next 2 or 3 minutes? And you see all the heads slowly sink down in the chairs because nobody wants to do it. And then you'll see some person go, I'll do it. And they get up there and they just ad lib for 2 minutes, which they've obviously done before. Everybody in the room has heard about their business and they sit back down again. And I go, wow, it was such a missed opportunity for so many other people that slid down in their chairs.
100%. And you never know where those speaking opportunities come from and also where they can lead to.
Yeah.
The bottom line is when you've finished standing up and speaking is people will generally come over. And that's where the relationships get built. That's where you get to have those conversations that lead to the conversions. There's people going, hey, I was interested in what you said or shared or inspired something in me, made me think about something different or think differently about something.
The people that you meet after you do a talk, because normally they'll have more questions. If you've done a good presentation, I think what puts people off, they're just scared that they're not going to do a good presentation.
So here's the deal I teach is everything is around structure and everything's around a process. And I think and I say generally, in most industries and in most jobs and in most work that we do, everything is process driven. You might find a creative has a lot less of a process than a surgeon. For example, but everything is process driven. Everything works within a framework. And the same thing applies to speaking. And I use a structure. It's called the Fantastic Four framework. Guess how many bits there are to it?
Oh, 4.
There you go. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So you've got an opening. You've got your body. Q&As, this is an interest one, is number 3. And your close is number 4. When you've got your opening, your body, your Q&A, and your close, and you've got that structure, and within each of those segments, you've got a process, it means that you can actually get up and you can deliver, whether it's a 10-minute presentation right through to a 90-minute presentation, just following the actual
same structure.
Yeah.
And when you say, and the four parts, they're not all timed the same either. The introduction might be the smallest part.
100%. So what we would do, and this is something that I recommend, particularly for when you are booked to be the guest speaker at an event, and it's, I guess, very similar to the podcast, is you want to make sure that you've got a speaker bio so that the first words coming out of your mouth are not, I am this, me, I, me, because the audience just wants to learn what you've got to say, lady.
Yeah.
So again, the very first thing, having a speaker bio means that you're introduced as the expert. You've already been placed as a credible expert in your space by the master of ceremonies or the host, who generally has the audience's trust already. So by the time you walk on stage, you're ready to go. And then we look at that opening again, very, very structured. I look at 5 Ps. Who are the people in the audience? We're looking at the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and how many of them are in that audience. We need to know who we're speaking to. Even in your world, if you were speaking to other podiatrists, you'd probably be using very different language than if you were speaking to an ordinary man or lady on the street type of person.
And I have done that where I've done one presentation to a group of dentists and the same presentation to just a group of business people.
Yeah.
And I used the terminology that I know dentists would understand, and I used different terminology for the business people.
Exactly. So before we've even got on that stage, and it's interesting because someone said to me, do you always go through the 5 Ps after 14 years? And I go, every single gig I do, I ask these questions. So who are the people? And the second one is...
Or can I just go back one step before that? When you said about having a good bio beforehand, because I've seen presentations where they've provided a bio, the person's read the bio, and then all of a sudden they'll get up on stage and the first 5 minutes of their talk is telling everybody about who they are. And you sit there going, but we've already gone through this.
Yeah, we just heard this once.
Yeah.
100%. So again, right, it comes down to structure. And if you've got, I spend a lot of time writing my bios because again, I don't want you spending 10 minutes introducing me. We want to kind of get into this.
Yeah, yes, dive in.
The podcast, we want to get going. So again, I say to my clients, spend time on that bio. So it's really succinct. That it's got all the credibility that you want in there so that by the time you are actually speaking, you're placed as the expert. To get the good
I've also heard with the bio too, it's also good to change your bio slightly based on the audience and the topic that you're going to be talking about. So if I was doing a presentation to other authors, I would mention that I've had 2 books written.
Correct.
I don't need to talk about the podcast if they don't really care about podcasting. But it could get mentioned if I wanted to, but the emphasis is on who it is that I'm talking to.
Absolutely. So that's the first thing is like, who are the people and how many of them are going to be in there?
Yeah.
Now, the second thing we look at is what is the actual purpose of this presentation? And
okay, that's good.
And there can be many purposes and there could be a couple. So for example, it could be to entertain. Okay.
Yep.
It could be to educate. And education, funny enough, is one that's a big one in the business world, is how we actually educating people. It could be to inspire. And again, your educate and your inspire can often work hand in hand. And then your last one is persuade. And that's where I say, do not be afraid to go, hey, when I'm on stage, I'm pretty keen to generate revenue as a result of it. So when you know what your purpose is, that also determines what is going to go into your actual presentation.
Well, I like that.
Then we look at the product. And again, the product, I guess, would relate to what you've just said, where you're speaking to dentists or you're speaking to authors. What is the actual thing that you're promoting? I've got so many topics that I can speak about. If I had to jump in here and go, we're going to talk about pitching, and we're going to talk about sales, and we're going to talk about cold calling, and we're going to talk about customer service, and we're going to talk about speaking, the audience is going
confused.
And what's the thing we say? The confused mind
says no.
Confused mind does not buy. It does not put its in its pocket for anything. So again, what is the product? We look at the period, which is how long? How long have we got here? I asked you the same question. Hey, how long have we got? You're then able to pretty much gauge which way you're going. And then the last thing is the platform. Is it live? Is it on a Zoom, on MS Teams, on Google Meet, on some other random platform? Is it hybrid? So those are the 5 Ps. And once you've got those 5 Ps, you've answered a whole ton of questions, which then allows you to move into that presentation with confidence. So that's where you'd get in your opening. What are the key questions? What are the pain points? When they leave your talk, what are they going to leave with? And then from there, once we've got that and we've got the audience on board, we then go into what I call the hero story. And the hero story is generally your own story. It's the thing that got you to where you are today. And again, your hero story changes depending on the product, right? Because my hero story on pitching is a very different hero story to professional speaking. So yeah, that's your opening. Your body is where you get your teaching and all the meat and potatoes happen. And then, of course, your close is generally nice and short, wraps it up, and hands back to your host. And then, of course, the Q&A is at number 3.
I can see, even with just having that structure in place, how much more confidence that would give certain people.
Yes.
Because it'd purely be the lack of structure. It's not, I don't know what to present. I don't know how to actually put it together into some format. To me, it's like when I've taught people how to do podcasting, and they go, oh, it just looks so big and scary. And I go, these are the steps on how you put a podcast together. And once they see how simple it is, they go, oh, I can do that.
I can do that, yeah.
And then it's really, really easy. What do you do for the person, though, who is just terrified?
There's always a reason why. And I guess
okay, yeah.
It's where, what is that reason? Is it an internal reason? Do you feel like you're an imposter? And no one would feel like they're an imposter. Oh, yeah. A lot of people go, I can't talk. I'm an imposter. They say things like, I feel that in that audience, there'll be people who know more. So these are the stories we tell ourselves. They're terrible stories, by the way.
And I think in podiatry too, 50% of podiatrists feel like imposters and the other 50% lie.
And here's the deal, right? And even from my side, I'm really knowledgeable on speaking and everything around it. There is always a chance that there's someone else in that audience who maybe knows more than I do. Maybe they've got 25 years of experience.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm not actually there for them. So I'm there for the people who need me, and they are the people that I serve. And again, I digress slightly. So when we're on stage, and you can have a laugh, it's a laugh all you like, you're on the stage, and this is me. You've got the lights, you've got the cameras, you've got the action, you've got the adoring fans, the applause. I just love all of that. It's just so great. And that's the one side of it. And that's the side that people think is the real deal. The real deal is actually getting up on that stage and serving. So when you've got a servant mindset on stage, yes, I'm incredibly powerful and very good at what I do. But when I'm on that stage, all of my attention is on the people in that room. So when you've got a serving mindset, you get over yourself really quickly, actually. I'm not there to be the big famous person. I'm there to actually help you.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. So I digressed slightly. But
No, but I think that's a really good point, because when you talk about the whole imposter syndrome, people get scared that, oh, I'm going to get up on stage, I'm going to talk, and there's going to be a whole pile of people in the room that know more than I do on that particular subject. But there's also going to be people in the room who don't know as much about that particular subject, and they're the people you're talking to. So if you can get your mindset around the fact that I'm only be helping 3 people out of 30 people, but you don't know how it's going to affect those 3 people and what they're going to then take away with that information. So I think it's a great point.
Different speakers come up with different things. You've got your own stories. And again, someone who's better than you may hear something and go, gosh, I've never actually looked at it that way, or that's really helpful. And I was really blessed, Tyson. I had a phenomenal mentor who worked with me pretty much from the start of my journey, Dr. Alex Granger. And he unfortunately passed in 2021. But Alex was my rock in so many ways. And I would call him on the way to a gig, and this is what it's all about. And I would talk through it and do the gig, and I'd get off stage, and on the way back, jump on my phone and be like, oh, this is how it went. And we did a debrief. We did this for 11 years. Yeah. And what's interesting is I often said to him, I feel like I learned so much from you. And he said to me, what's interesting is how much I learned from you. And I was like, really? He says, you do some things very differently to how I do them. And you've given me insights into things that I never thought about because of how your brain works. It's different to mine. And Alex was probably one of the top speakers in Africa. So again, even where we think we're not impacting people, we actually are.
You would know Andrew Griffiths.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Andrew was talking to me one day, and I remember him saying that he did this talk to a group of personal trainers. Okay. And he said he got there, he's on stage and he's waving his arms about as he does, and he's just giving us all this amazing information. And when he finished, he got a good, little bit of applause from everybody. He went, okay, I felt good about himself. I reckon this next guy who gets up there, and they were talking about marketing, and he's giving them all this really elaborate marketing stuff. This next guy gets up there, dressed pretty averagely, and says, you need to get a business card. And the crowd's going, oh, and he's just saying the most basic stuff. Everybody stood up, gave him a standing ovation. And Andrew's there going, you are shitting me, aren't you? He gave the most basic stuff, but Andrew had forgotten that sometimes the crowd needs that basic information. Now, there may have been people in the crowd there that were going, I already know all that. But obviously there were a lot who didn't.
Yes.
And Andrew reckons he walked away from that taking away so much from that actual presentation.
Yeah, and every audience is different, but if you follow the structure, you've got a plan.
Yes.
Getting on the road without a map, like you don't just hit the road and go, we're driving to Queensland from Sydney. I mean, I think there's probably only one road anyway.
Just go north, yeah.
Just go north, just keep going north to get there. You've got to actually have a plan.
So I thought now would be a perfect time to just dive in and remind everybody that if you're looking or considering a podiatry business coach, before you reach out to some of the larger coaching companies, please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, and read through the coaching section. You'll see I've got a model there called the Thriving Podiatry Business Model. And after you read through everything, there's also a link to my online calendar. From there, we can organize a 30-minute Zoom call. We'll have a bit of a talk. I'll explain the Thriving Podiatry Business Model in a bit more detail. And you may find just after that call, that is all you need just to give yourself a little bit of guidance. But if you want to take it further, I can give you more information. So please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Okay, let's get back to the interview.
I want to go back. So you said, people feel that they've lost their voice and they just feel so stressed. Again, what works for one speaker doesn't necessarily work for all. So for me to prepare to speak, I'm very calm. I have water, room temperature water, to make sure that my vocal cords are lubricated. Obviously, never ever drink alcohol before you go on stage. Nothing good comes of it.
Could be good for the audience, though.
No, just don't go there. You do not want to be remembered.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to be that drunk speaker.
Do you remember that speaker who fell off stage? So anyway, every speaker prepares differently. I've been backstage where we've done showcases where we've got 10 or 20 speakers backstage ready to kind of go on 5 minutes a speaker type of thing. And some of them are doing star jumps and some of them are doing push-ups. So you look backstage and there's a million things happening. Different speakers prepare in different ways. So if you're that speaker who feels that you really get short of breath and you can kind of feel it in the top of your chest, breathe. It's just big breaths in, big breaths out. let that air fill your lungs, let your diaphragm do the work it needs to do, and relax your vocal cords. Once you're out there, people are dying to hear what you've got to say. They're dying for that education. So it's the breathing. It's making sure you have water. I'm not a fan of speakers drinking on stage because you hear the clink, clink, clink while they've got their little microphone on. But have water before you go on that stage so that you are well lubricated. And do the thing that works for you. Some speakers like to think and get into their head, and some like to be all energetic before they go.
And what I find interesting with all that too is, I know a lot of speakers as well. And even the really good speakers that you see get up on stage and they just nail it every time, still have a process that they go through.
Yep.
And still get nervous before they get up there.
Yeah.
They don't just, and somebody else said to me once that if you just walk up on stage and you have no emotions whatsoever when you're going up there, you're probably not going to give a very good presentation.
And that's another point is I was in South Africa and my key topic was actually customer service. And I had a big insurance firm that called me and they wanted to really give me a lot of money to do this talk. I was like, this is amazing.
That's good.
I was taking the booking and I was going through my P's and I said, and it was on the product part. And I said, I just want to check we are looking at customer service, yes? They said, oh, no, we need your leadership talk. I said, okay, but I don't have a leadership talk. No, but you can do a leadership talk. I said, okay, let me just slow this right down. I can do a leadership talk, but I don't speak on leadership. Why? I said, because it's not my expert area. So yes, I've effectively led teams and yes, I've effectively led the organization, but I don't have a book. I don't have a workshop. I don't have a follow-up talk. I don't even have a worksheet. I've got none of that stuff because that's not my focus area. I'm sticking to my pot. What are we going to do? I said, we're going to find you the best damn leadership speaker in the country and they're going to do the gig.
That makes sense.
I got hold of a guy called Lorne, stunning man, great leadership speaker. And he said to me, but you can speak on leadership. I said, my friend, I can speak on leadership, but I don't. I said, because the bottom line is you're going to get a talk on customer service. You can do it, but you won't do it. You're going to give it to me. I mean, good point. Good point, Sarah. I like that. So again, when we're getting on that stage, you're speaking about your expert area. I could speak on giving birth, but boy, oh boy, that would be real imposter syndrome, number one. And all I've done is I've birthed 2 babies.
Yeah, I've birthed none. And I reckon I could do the same talk.
Right.
With even more imposter syndrome.
Righty-ho. And I mean, can you imagine a really experienced doctor, gynecologist getting up there and giving a really powerful talk, or a midwife giving a really powerful talk about birthing, being able to answer any questions that come their way and having a book that they can sell at the back of the room.
Yeah.
So speak on what you're good at, speak on what you know, because that takes away half the nerves. A lot of the nerves sit in here.
And I think for podiatrists too, like for the average podiatrist that's in a clinic, most of their speaking opportunities may not be at the association or on a big stage. A lot of their speaking opportunities may just be at the local medical centre or local sports ground in front of 10, 15, 20 people. And I think they've got to realise in that room on that day, nobody knows podiatry as well as they do. Nobody.
Yeah, and you never know who you inspire and touch in that room.
Yeah.
Looking at sport, you're looking at a bunch of sportsmen. There could be someone in that room who's going, I'm looking for a career change, or I'm feeling like I want to do something different, or I want to take a new path. And this amazing human comes in to share and serve. You cannot believe the power that you have as a speaker in terms of inspiring and moving people.
Yeah, and especially in podiatry, if you could be approached, like, say, for example, I was approached by Cairns Netball to come in and do a talk on different types of strapping and do a bit of a demonstration. I thought it'd be about 10 or 15 people there. We turn up, it's 150 people. And I wasn't nervous by then. I was used to doing it.
We're over it.
I was over all that, yes. But what I realised is there's other podiatrists that get these opportunities. And if they say no, and they may be the best podiatrist in that town to be sharing their information, if they let the guy down the street who's a bit of a dud get up there and do the talk and not give the not so much not the right information, but not as good. Like you said, there could be that one person that needed to hear it from you, not them. And that would have changed their life.
Correct. You have the power to change your life. I had a very interesting audience. It was one of my first big gigs in Australia. And I gave the talk, and the man at the front of the room was the guy who paid the big bucks. It was a global company. We had about 400 or 500 people in the room. This was the guy who'd signed off the budget. He was from Sweden, and he sat like this cross-armed the whole talk. It was very interactive. There were group activities. It was like all the magic was happening. He didn't move. And I thought, oh my goodness, this poor man is so unhappy with me. I obviously wasn't what he was hoping for. Anyway, got off stage, a whole bunch of people came up and lots of questions, and he stood in the line very patiently. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen at the end anyway. And he eventually, after everyone had dispersed for lunch, he came to me and he said, that was a really good presentation. I'm so glad that you loved it. And I'm thinking, okay, what's coming up next? And he said, your story in the beginning has moved me in such a way that it took me back to my own journey 35 years ago. And he said, seeing you and where you've come from and your medical drama, I had a medical drama, your medical drama that got you to where you are today. He said, I'm sitting here going, no more excuses. He says, you've changed my life. And I was literally on that stage for an hour thinking the guy who paid the bill doesn't like me. So again, you just don't know who you're going to impact. Serve.
I was fortunate enough to do a talk in Liverpool and there was 1,000 podiatrists there. And I remember walking up on stage and I think the first thing that came out of my mouth was, I wish I had worn my brown pants. And because it was such a big crowd. But when I was there, a girl came up to me and said, I want to introduce myself. She says, you don't know me, but I did podiatry because I met you in Australia. Ooh. And when I was in high school, I met you, I was a patient and you were talking about podiatry and that inspired me that when I moved to the UK with my family, I decided to do podiatry. I just wanted to let you know.
How did you feel?
I got my photo taken with her. I was so happy that I could have that sort of positive impact on somebody.
Isn't that a great reminder?
Yeah.
I love that.
Every patient that's in the room with you, and that's what I mean about even just the presentation. Sometimes it's just you and another person talking. Yeah. Everything is a performance.
Yeah, 100%.
And I had that conversation. I was talking on leadership with someone yesterday. And but one of the things we were talking about, I said, ask your team, do they think they're leaders or not? And they went, oh, okay. And they said, why? I said, well, they might think they're not leaders. I said, but when they're in the room with a patient, they have to be the leader.
100%.
I said, because the patients want to be led on what's actually going to happen. I said, so you need to use your leadership to teach them that they are leaders, if not in the clinic overall, but they are with the patients. And you just don't know where that conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
So they could have some similar structure even when they're just with their patients talking.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it again. No one comes to the podiatrist to not be told what to expect.
Yeah. They want to be led.
They want to know. And I think back to my daughter, she had a cheerleading injury, but obviously with an injury, there's a process. And we really felt like we were in the hands of our doctor. He was outstanding. But we literally said, what do we do to get her back on the floor for the next comp? What is the process? Where do we start? And it wasn't him going, I think this, or maybe we could do that, or perhaps this would work. He went, this is the plan.
Yeah, that's good.
Execute it. What comes out at the other end, we hope it's going to get her on the floor. It may or may not, but that's the plan. So people need to be led. And we needed to know when we were paying the bill that it's again, the confused mind doesn't buy. I was very happy to pay the money because there was a plan. He was clear. He said, I can't guarantee it, but we can do the best we can. She's got to bring her bit to the party too. So again, to encourage her. As 15-year-old girls, they forget to do their exercises.
So to 58-year-old guys.
So the 58-year-old men, my goodness gracious, men, I tell you, not taking.
But that's where these presentation skills, it's not just on a big stage. It's at all different levels going down that you can take these skills. if you're a business owner talking to your team, if you're a team member talking to a patient, these different opportunities are always going to be in front of you.
Yeah, 100%. What I also teach, and one of the things that I teach in the Power on the Platform 3-day masterclass, which is my absolute.
Yeah, I want that information because I want everybody to know about it. So if they really want to do this at a more serious level, to actually think about doing it.
I'd love that. I'd love that. And so one of the things that we do in that 3-day is we actually have a look at what we call a unique branded system. And this may be something that your listeners are familiar with or may not be familiar with, but taking things like, for example, the DISC profiling, or taking Maslow's triangle, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad quadrants, whatever it is that you do. It's around developing a branded system for your business so that you are able to use that branded system for whatever. The whatever in my world is the speaking opportunities. So when we look at that branded system, what are you actually speaking on? What are your focus areas? And now that we know the focus areas, we've got our body, which is where all the magic happens.
Yeah.
How do we structure that around each of those pieces? So as you're developing it, where you're thinking of a stage presentation, when you pull it right back, you're able to bring that into your business. I had 2 really successful stories just around that. Both of them, funny enough, did not want to be professional speakers. They wanted to grow their own personal skills.
Yeah.
And the one was a business broker, a very interesting man, Scott. And as a result of the course, he actually developed a different product within his business to sell. Because as he went through the process, he went, hey, we're talking about business broking, but there's actually a whole bunch of stuff that happens 2 years before we're selling a business. And he started a new revenue stream in his business as a result. And I thought that was really great. The second guy was a builder. And I'm like, what's the builder going to do? And he said, I just want to be able to share my passion. Just beautiful, man. I'll share my passion. I said, okay. So he developed a system in that 3-day workshop. And at the end of it, he said, I'm going to do a webinar, an hour-long webinar. I said, good. He says, I'm going to present this thing. It's going to be amazing. And he did a good job. I jumped on. And there was a chap in the room who was quietly observing, would probably be the most polite way to put it. Anyway, after the webinar, I called him and I couldn't get hold of him. I was like, oh, that's weird. Anyway, he called me an hour later. He said, you will not believe what happened. I said, what? He said, do you remember the guy in the room with the blonde hair? I said, oh, yeah, he was very quiet. He said, he runs the biggest Facebook group in New South Wales for builders. And I've been kicked off this page. I said, why were you kicked off? He says, I have no idea. But I was booted off the page about a year ago. Anyway, I reached out to this chap and said, I'm running this webinar. Why don't you jump on? And he came. He said, anyway, I'm now back in the group. I have been given a personal recommendation by this gentleman who owns and runs the groups. He's got a lot of clients. And I said, what does that look like for your business? He said, I can only do 8 builds in the next 12 months. Each build is worth between $1 to $2 million. Thank you, Sydney. $1 to $2 million. And I will close every deal off that Facebook page. I was like, okay, so I guess you could say it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Out of curiosity, did he ever find out why he got booted off?
So what had happened is a lot of people had been recommending him. So the guy thought that people were basically just spamming the page and just recommending someone that they didn't know. Oh, we've heard of this guy. We've heard of this guy. We've heard of this guy. And he was like saying, but genuinely, all those people had heard of me. He's like, no, it sounds like spam. Bang, you're out.
Oh, gee, that's a bit harsh.
The joy of Facebook, I tell you. But again, it just shows, though, that being able, and was he the greatest speaker in the world? No. Was he a good speaker? Yes.
Yeah.
He had a plan. And when he presented it, he came across as, and he said to me afterwards, I was shaking, Sarah. My throat was dry. But he got up and he delivered. He said, I just followed your process. That's all I did, follow the process. And that was the net result. So one of the things I'm really proud of in the course that I run is that every person, bar 2, have actually made money as a result of working with me. So the folk who go, I suppose your top 3 things are, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, and why do I want to do this now?
Yeah.
Every person who's invested, and I call it an investment, who's invested in that 3-day has actually made money. So the 2 people who didn't make money, let's talk about them. Let's be real. Well, the one was my husband, and the reason he came is he just came to support me, and he didn't have a product to sell. He works in an actual organization, and he's in IT, so he's not even client-facing. So he didn't make any money off it. And the second one was a woman, she works in the church, and as a result, she developed a program for women coming out of domestic violence situations using the branded system, the thing we just spoke about. And she said through that, so many lives have been touched and changed. So she said for her, it's worth $1 million.
Yeah.
But no money is generated because of the kind of program it was. So I love the fact that people who've come in, who've spent the money, they've made their money back. And for me, that's really important.
I think that's with any program. Like I run different things. Anyone's listening to this, the 2-day podiatry business reboot, go to my website, tysonfranklin.com. You'll see the info there. But it's the same thing. I tell people, if you do it, if at the end of 2 days you go, that was crap, Tyson, didn't like it, I'll give you back twice what you paid, because I know you'll walk out going, we should have paid more.
Should have paid more.
It's worth far more.
Far more. And that's the deal. When I do work with people, I do chat with them. I don't just say, hey, sign up. I want to have that chat. I want to know, where are you? What are you wanting to achieve? Is this the right program to get you there? And can I get you there? I mean, obviously you just want to sign everyone up, but I can only work with 60 people a year. I work with groups of 12, 5 times a year. That is it.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure the people that come into my world are going to benefit, number one, and that they're going to change the world. One speech at a time.
Do you run all your events in Sydney?
So interestingly enough, I ran all of them in Sydney until I had my Melbourne clients who said, hey, we're feeling left out.
Yeah.
So this year, for the very first time, I'm actually putting one in Melbourne. So I've got a couple coming up. My June workshop Masterclass is completely sold out. I've got one coming up in Sydney, which is the 26th to the 28th of July. A couple of weeks later, 9 to 11 August in Melbourne. And then a couple more in Sydney for the rest of the year. So
what is your website so people can go to it and go and check it out?
Absolutely. So it's obviously www.powerontheplatform.com.au. So powerontheplatform.com.au. And they can send an inquiry. They're welcome to give me a ring, pick up the call, pick up the phone, let's have a chat. Otherwise, you can do the application online, and once you've done that application, I'll be on a call with you to make sure that we're good.
One thing I saw on your website too, and it said, because you said this earlier on, just say yes.
Always say yes.
Yeah, so this was on your website. It said say yes, so you can be seen as an industry leader, stand out from your competitors. Now that is a huge thing for podiatrists, to stand out amongst the competitors. Share your knowledge, which I think every podiatrist should be doing with the community at any opportunity that they get. Build your personal brand, expand your network, increase your visibility, generate leads, and also grow your business. And even with the generate leads, when you're better at presenting and you walk into a doctor's surgery and there's 3 or 4 doctors there and you are using that structure that you were talking about, just by doing that, if they can see that, geez, you actually presented that professionally, you didn't and look disorganized and pulling pieces of paper out of different places, they are going to refer more patients.
I guess it builds that one little currency that we cannot buy. And that, of course, is the currency of trust.
Yes, 100%. So you only do this 5 times a year?
Yes, I only run the 3 days. So it's called the 3-day intensive. Someone asked why it was called that. It's 3 days.
Because it goes for 3 days and it's intense.
Oh my goodness, it really is. Yeah, you're quite shattered by the end of it all. But it's 3 days. I run it normally on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And again, I go back to the very start of our conversation. One of the areas I love working with is business owners. And again, the reason I run it the Friday, Saturday, Sunday is time is a big issue. And we want to make sure that they're still working in the business that they need to work in, and really only just taking the Friday out and dedicating their weekend to it. So it runs 3 days, and I literally run 5 a year. I do a couple of free workshops as well. And I'm always pretty honest. It's a great workshop filled with information.
Yep.
There's a funnel where I'm obviously promoting the thing that I'm the most passionate about, which is that 3 day. So again, I'm not a good person who can sell silently. I can literally tell them I'm about to sell you something. Here it comes.
No, but I think that's the way it should be. And I know there's a lot of people out there, I call them freeple, where they're just people looking for free stuff all the time. All they want is the free stuff. And that will take you so far. But if you really want to develop a skill that you will have for the rest of your life, then you need to invest in that.
Yeah. And I look back, Tyson, and I'm glad you mentioned that, is I didn't get to share my actual story of how I got to where I am.
Yeah.
It was February of 2010. I was sitting in a room. There were speaker after speaker who were basically selling from the stage. And it was funny. People were getting irritated. And I'm going, I'm here to be sold to. Sell to me. Anyway, of course, this gentleman got up, Andy Harrington from the UK, and he blew my mind. I just sat there going, I just never seen anything like it. It was just like, what? This is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And I was that idiot who climbed over the chair, shoving everybody out the way with my credit card because he only had 100 spots at this workshop, and I paid, it cost an absolute fortune. And my husband, when I got home, he said, oh my gosh, did you buy it? And I was like, yeah. He's like, do you regret it? No. He's like, well, I'm like, I don't know. I just think the guy is great. And when I look back, I could have got a refund because you had your cooling off period.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm so grateful that I didn't, because the next day, and when I realized what I had done, I called my friend Alex, and Alex said to me, do you want a mentor? And I went, oh, let me think about that for a millisecond. I'm in. So as a result, I said yes to Alex. And then I got my very first paid gig, and I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to pay me money to get on their stage. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not good enough? What if they know everything that I'm teaching them? And I called Alex, and he said, what are you doing? This is what you trained for. The answer's yes. So I was like, what's the damn answer's yes? So again, when I look back, I'm immensely grateful that I said yes to Andy, and it was a lot of money that we didn't necessarily have at the time.
Yeah.
Just knew that if I want to do this thing, that's the man that's going to get me there. I was so grateful to say yes to Alex and having him as part of my journey. What a privilege that was. And he always made sure that I kept on my true north. And I'm immensely grateful for the very first client who actually was prepared to pay me for my knowledge. And I look back now, and the lives I've touched and changed as a result, it's a real privilege. So if you're thinking about it, don't even think, just do it. The investment is amazing because it's not just the money that you get, it's the lives that you change and the people that you.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I know I've seen other programs, and the one that I do, and other things that I've heard people say, oh yeah, I want to do it, but I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. And I just go, oh.
Time waits for no man or woman.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that they're actually waiting for. And I know sometimes they go, oh, if I spend the money, what if it's no good? All you can do is look at the people that have done these sort of programs before, and they're going to work. So I'm not saying everyone listen to this, yeah, because there's thousands of podiatrists who listen to this podcast, so they can't all fit in with your program.
I can take 60 a year.
Yeah. It's the same as when I do the reboot. I do the same thing. I cap it at about 12. And because it's just a good number. It's a good number that you can talk with everybody, and everybody gets to know each other really well. It's not too big.
In fact, what we do in ours, which is really nice, is I do teaching.
Yeah.
So I'm a natural. The thing that fires me up is teaching. So it's about, what are we doing? Why do we do it? And how do you do it? So what is the actual process? So I teach it. Then they go away and they start writing. So in other words, they actually take the information that we've just done and they put it into practice. And then they do the really hard thing. They get up and they deliver it. So we do bite-sized chunks. So with a group of 12, everyone has the chance to get up and deliver. Everyone gets the chance to get feedback. And the best is on day 3, when every person gets up and delivers a 10-minute presentation. The people that walked in on day 1 and walk out on day 3 are different people.
I believe it.
It's epic. I love it.
Okay, well, Sarah, I want to thank you again for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast. I know this is a different group of people that you're talking to. You're sort of thinking, podiatrists? You want me on a podiatry podcast?
I see opportunity everywhere. We never say no.
I know, but I just think, the other thing I was going to say too, you and Sam, your brother, Sam Harrop, are so similar in your energy and your waving your hands, but you must have driven your parents nuts.
Oh, I think, no, my parents were
Were they the same?
Yeah, I think it's like monkey see, monkey do, and then monkey see, monkey do again.
Because usually you'll get one crazy child and the other one is quite reserved, but you're both a bit nutty.
Oh, no, we both a bit nutty. I mean, he's a pretty cool big brother.
He's a little bit more reserved than you,
Oh,
slightly.
really?
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more reserved.
Oh, that's too
But
funny.
when he's excited and he's passionate about a topic,
Yeah.
then he just absolutely gets into it. So people, if you go back and listen to 154 and 157, the episodes, become an employer of choice. You will absolutely love them. So back to my farewell. Sarah, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing your knowledge. If any podiatrist has listened to this, and I've said this often, and you didn't get something from this, give yourself an uppercut. Take 2 Panadol, have a lie down, get back up and listen to it again. You obviously weren't listening. So, Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an absolute privilege, an absolute pleasure, Tyson. I'm looking forward to serving your listeners.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Sarah today. And I tell you right now, I think if you can improve your presentation skills, it makes such a huge difference to your life. Like I mentioned, I was terrified to do public speaking, but the more I did it, and then I started getting probably some structure around what I was doing, the easier it became. And I do think it's one of these things that the better you get at your presentation skills, not only can it help if you want to go out and do a lot of public speaking, but just talking to professional referrers, talking with your patients, talking with small group meetings, it just opens so many doors. So go and check out Sarah's website, powerontheplatform.com.au. Like she said, she does it 5 times a year. So go and check it out, see when the next one is. Now, before I wrap up, I want to remind people again about the 2-day podiatry business reboot. Now, the next one's coming up shortly. It's going to be in July. And I only do this once per year. Small group, 12 people. Go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, click on events and have a look at the details. Have a look at what we cover over the 2 days. It will blow your mind. It will change your business. And like I always say, if you do it and you sort of go, Tyson, I didn't really enjoy that, didn't get what I wanted out of it, I'll give you 2 times what you paid for it. So you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.